Innovation can spring from many sources. In Ellicott City, Maryland, countless inventive and ingenious ideas were inspired by the Patapsco River. This great rolling river has spawned pioneering innovations through the years.
Developments in manufacturing that had a huge influence on America's Industrial Revolution.
Innovations in science and math by amazing people like Benjamin Banneker.
Inventions like those at the Ellicott City B&O Railroad Station.
The oldest surviving railroad station in the U.S.
Yeah!
Improvements in land management, where folks worked hard to transform unused railway tracks into treks through nature.
Where open-minded people work together to overcome obstacles.
To advance public education and social equality, an ongoing challenge.
The earliest innovators moved along the Patapsco for thousands of years and pioneered ways to draw on its resources, enabling them to thrive.
The water is the lifeblood of Mother Earth, and we respect it as that. We worked hand in hand with Mother Nature to produce food, whether it was hunting and gathering or whether it was actually being planted. So when they moved, those movements would usually be between a permanent location, such as a village, that would usually be near a body of water. And during the winter, they would move inland. That's where the resources would be for them to stay warm during the winter months. And when spring comes, they move back. There's the time where seeds are planted, where they grow, then it's harvested, and then they have to be stored. That takes someone with knowledge of technology, knowing nature, knowing the seasons, that using the shoulder blade of a deer for a hoe to dig with, the fact that somebody was smart enough to figure out just where to strike a rock in order to make an arrowhead. When you incorporate language, the seasonal events, and the technology, then you start creating culture, making tradition that carries on from generation to generation.
Late in the 1700s, three Quaker brothers from Pennsylvania, Joseph, Andrew, and John Ellicott, decided to settle along the banks of the Patapsco, where they pioneered the growth and milling of a rarely used crop, wheat.
The innovation of the Ellicott brothers would grow this small riverside settlement from a backwoods colony to a thriving center of commerce.
In the 1800s, Martha Ellicott Tyson wrote about the triumphs and challenges of those Ellicott brothers, including her grandfather, Andrew.
The earliest change in the agricultural system of Maryland was occasioned by a purchase made in 1772 by the brothers. The purchase embraced the lands on both sides of the Patapsco and included all the water power within that distance. Having commenced the building of their Patapsco mills, the first wheat they manufactured into flour was the product of their own fields.
Back in the 1700s, bread was considered a luxury food, and many people couldn't afford it.
Wait, people couldn't afford bread?
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Local folks called the Ellicott brothers fools to plant wheat, since tobacco was the money crop in this area. Unfortunately, decades of repeatedly planting tobacco depleted the soil of vital nutrients. The Ellicotts believed that wheat could be a successful product, but the brothers were not here to simply grow a crop. They were here to construct a flour milling operation, and with it, a flourishing village.
They had what every innovator needs to succeed: experience, resources, energy, and most importantly, a vision.
And their vision included clearing ground for the road needed to transport the wheat for distribution.
This wasn't just any road. This would one day connect with the National Road, the gateway to the West.
Those roads would also lead to shipping ports to export the flour. Ships would also bring in the many new workers needed to farm the land and run the mills. And all of those people would need housing, so the Ellicotts built a sawmill to cut the lumber for that new construction.
And with all those new homes and families, you'd need shops to supply them with household goods and clothing.
And tools and hardware for upkeep.
And toys!
And you'd need a quarry for the stone to build homes and houses of worship and centers for learning.
And you still see granite building blocks all around Ellicott City.
Transportation was greatly advanced when rail lines were run through Ellicott City. And chugging along those rails were powerful locomotives, like the Tom Thumb, which pulled cars full of people and goods.
The original 13 miles of the railroad's tracks started in Baltimore and ended at the Ellicott City B&O station.
End of the line!
And the success of this line encouraged the construction of other railroads across the United States.
And all that growth started right here, where the Ellicott brothers built their first flour mill, where the power of the Patapsco would turn its wheels day and night as a new automated technology included the use of an elevator, a conveyor, and more advanced designs, which required fewer workers.
These innovations made the mills even more productive.
The Ellicott brothers saw great opportunities in the planting of wheat, as did their neighbor, Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Carroll, an original signer of the Declaration of Independence, invested in the Ellicott's mills and transitioned to growing wheat on his plantation. The fact that many of the economic gains during this time came by the use of enslaved labor all too often goes unmentioned. But those denied their human rights did not go unnoticed by the Ellicotts, members of the Society of Friends, also called Quakers, who together with the Methodists and others helped form the Maryland Society for the Abolition of Slavery. After many Quakers rejected slavery worldwide, they frequently appealed to authorities to outlaw the practice of owning human beings. While Ellicott City was grappling with all of these issues, the Ellicott family accompanied Native chiefs on their missions to Washington, D.C. to petition for the relief of Native Americans and traveled at the invitation of tribes to share methods of farming. Andrew's son, George Ellicott, welcomed chiefs of Native American tribes to discuss many important concerns, including peace in the region.
George Ellicott's home can still be found here in Ellicott City. It used to be across the street by the original flour mill, but it was moved to higher ground to preserve it from additional flooding.
And George Ellicott often invited another good friend to his home.
Benjamin Banneker!
Right, which is where he met George's daughter, Martha Ellicott Tyson.
And she wrote 2 biographies about Benjamin.
I'm proud to be the descendant of Benjamin Banneker, my 5th great uncle. Benjamin Banneker was born a free black man in 1731. He grew up on a tobacco farm that was just over the hill from Ellicott City. He went to the school of a Quaker man who lived in the neighborhood. He could already read, he could already write, but the school taught him to do his numbers. And that was going to come in handy later because he had a mind for math. He was curious and he was smart. And he made a striking clock that kept time for 50 years. Benjamin Banneker was a farmer and he was an innovator. He planted fruit trees, he kept bees. He was almost a middle-aged man when he met the Ellicotts. He became a scientist, he became a mathematician, and he became a writer.
The Ellicotts helped Benjamin publish his famous almanacs.
Andrew Ellicott's nephew, also named Andrew, was hired to survey and lay the original boundary stones for what became Washington, D.C. He asked Benjamin to assist him, well aware of Benjamin's capacity for math and astronomy.
Benjamin Banneker and his family lived and farmed in an area now called Owella.
In the 1700s, free blacks acquired land in this area, which evolved into a close-knit neighborhood.
Adding to its prosperity, the Union Manufacturing Company opened in 1809, one of many textile mills that operated along the river.
You can still see the homes on Owella Avenue today that housed generations of those mill workers.
But even though there were opportunities in this town,
the road to equality would continue to be a difficult journey.
In 1880, the Ellicott City Colored School opened and educated thousands of African American students until 1953, and it serves an important educational purpose today.
Here you can still learn about the county's African American history, education, and the continuing pursuit for equal rights.
The Patapsco Female Institute was founded in 1837. Set high on a hill, it was an academy of higher learning for young women from affluent families across the nation.
In a time when it was uncommon for girls to learn math and science, the Institute emphasized those subjects.
Because of the Institute's principal.
Almira Hart Lincoln Phelps was a true pioneer in education, a 19th century botanist, educator, and author of several science textbooks. Almira influenced many women in those days to become scientists and teachers themselves. Her work was groundbreaking, and her words were inspiring.
I have sought to gather in one circle intelligent and devoted young women, inspired with a noble desire to cultivate their own minds and to impart to others the fruit of education, that there might be a course of life, dignified and useful, devoted to the study of the true and beautiful.
The Institute is still contributing to the community as folks come from near and far to enjoy theatrical events on the grounds. In 1830, the Rock Hill Academy was built for the education of boys. There they could study mathematics, the theory and practice of surveying, chemistry, and bookkeeping.
It eventually became the Ellicott City Elementary School, and today holds condominiums and townhomes.
The founders of Ellicott City imagined a community where every human being deserved a seat at the table.
The people of Ellicott City continued to break through society's artificial boundaries, and through innovative thinking, they transformed this area for the better.
In 1899, they completed the trolley bridge over the Patapsco River.
And the Ellicott City trolley line ran from Fells Lane to Catonsville Junction.
When those trolleys were bypassed by more modern modes of transportation, the community transformed the trolley line into today's very popular trolley trail.
On this trail, you can journey between canyons of hand-cut granite and past tranquil streams.
Pioneering individuals built the Bloaty Dam in 1907, recognized as the world's first underwater hydroelectric plant. More than a century later, this dam was determined to be a detriment to aquatic life and a danger to visitors. So experts and volunteers joined forces to remove the structure.
Thanks to the Patapsco River Restoration Partnership, this portion of the river flows free once again.
You can see these improvements for yourself as you travel along the Grist Mill Trail.
Maryland's first state park, Patapsco Valley State Park, was established as a forest reserve in 1907.
I love Patapsco Valley State Park mostly because of the Patapsco River. I love the quietness of the river, the flow of the water, and just the environment is calming.
The original 43 acres has grown to over 16,000 and is host to more than 2 million visitors a year.
I'm one of them.
I love the state park.
We visit all the time.
Here, where the Ellicotts built their first mill and newer mills replaced it, plans are moving forward to repurpose this iconic factory building. It'll be a multi-purpose space with apartments, a restaurant, and shops alongside the river.
While Ellicott City and the Patapsco have become destinations for recreation and water sports and entertainment of all kinds, they have also faced enormous challenges. Any river can be volatile, and the Patapsco is no different. It has raged over its banks, and the powerful water that ran grain mills has also wreaked havoc on the lives and property in Ellicott City. But time and again, this amazing town and its resilient people have faced those challenges, rebuilt and renewed the tradition of a life well lived in a place they love. Yes, even older than the United States itself, Ellicott City continues to be a celebration of community and innovation.
We know it's a small town, but it's a town that's made an impact beyond its borders.
For more than 250 years, people from around the country
and from around the world have been drawn to this great big little town.
Drawn to its history.
To the adventure.
To the people.
And drawn to the nurturing waters flowing through the Patapsco Valley.